Thanks for joining us again. Hopefully, this is your second time checking out our videos. If you haven't seen the first, please go back and check it out. We've got some great content in there. Again, my name is Jason Marsdale. I am account executive here at InSource. We're a big ServiceNow shop, and I'm joined by, again, David Cheetham, principal consultant and founder of Transform Communications LLC. And today we wanted to jump into a few more topics. One in particular, David and I were chatting about is some of the technology, or I should say software solutions that ServiceNow can offer organizations, with the focus really being on HR, because a lot of the things that David and I have talked about have involved that area. And one of the things that I discussed with him that I've recently been speaking with some prospects on is employee onboarding, and what goes into that process traditionally, and how ServiceNow can better work those folks through the process. And so, just as like a basic example, David, we've got customers that we're speaking with, or prospects rather. They onboard a customer, or onboard an employee. They want to set up a new email. They want to get a laptop to them. They want to get software permissions, maybe a building card for access. And a lot of times when we look at that structure, it's a manual. It's a abundance of manual processes, and it's a checklist that they're going through. ServiceNow is able to put that into a workflow environment so that the soon-to-be employee, as well as folks on the admin side of that process, can see where each of those steps are in the process. Has that laptop been built yet? Has it been deployed? Has software been loaded on it? What have you? And so you don't have to worry about clearing out that inbox with all these crazy notifications and emails and things getting lost in the shuffle. I can quickly go into a dashboard that's really easy, user-friendly, and see where all those stages are. And then in addition to the onboarding side of it, if we take it one step further, knowledge base. So if somebody, they need to reset their password, there could be instructions there. Or if they want to see their holiday calendar, they can use a thing called Virtual Agent and say, holiday calendar for 2024. All these things that, instead of it being an ask of an actual person, you're building up this database and you're building up this environment that makes it more for a self-serve experience, which then lends it to be a better experience long-term for those employees, both on the admin side as well as those new coming or onboarded employees. And so love to jump into some more of the topics we were discussing, and try to see what your insight is that you can offer when it comes to communicating among the stakeholders, and just discuss some of the things that I talked about through some of your success stories as well.
Exactly, and I'm so glad you mentioned, Jason, what's exciting about the ServiceNow platform as a change practitioner is the idea of using the process automation aspects, which is the real power to ServiceNow platform, and overlay that with change management, the change management process, the change management plan, bringing in those stakeholders. So if you visualize, as you mentioned, onboarding, which is something that we all do, should be a routine, but sometimes it's not, because the new employee isn't bombarded by emails. As you mentioned, they're not sure which they should be paying attention to. You magnify that by a factor of 5 or 10 when you're undergoing a major change. The change itself could be implementing new software. Yeah. So the exciting thing about ServiceNow is, and as we step through some examples, is the idea that we can harness the process orientation of the platform in a structured way for change management, bringing in the key stakeholders, advancing the ability of early adopters to get up to speed, helping to set up and regulate the change management team and how they interface with the project management team, et cetera. And that's very powerful. So you mentioned best practices in communicating change. My first guidance is to address all the journalistic questions. I think we learned all of this in middle school, but the who, what, when, how, why, all right? But I add to that in change management, what is seldom communicated, and that is why now? Why are we making this change, and why are we making it now? Why didn't we make it 6 months ago? Why won't we make it 6 months in the future? Why didn't you tell me about this change when I first joined the organization, et cetera? And so I would start with that proposition, and I'll quickly cover those. Who should be in on this? Well, everybody who's going to be affected by the change as soon as they can. That's really when the win comes. And so often I hear, well, we have confidential information or it's private, and so we really can't tell people yet. And what that ends up becoming is last minute. And often the employee, who is the one, which we'll talk about in a second with the stakeholder management, is primary to making it work, is often the last to know, the last in the chain. So what, of course, is the change, how it's going to affect each of the stakeholders, when is it going to happen, and also when are you going to communicate? How is this going to happen? How will the change itself happen? But also, how will you communicate? So each of those journalistic questions can be asked not only of the change initiative, but of the communication process itself.
How do you handle when folks, because we've had this in organizations where I feel like it's a bit of a seesaw. We want to make sure we communicate it to the staff to not have it be a last minute, but we also don't want it to be the point where all of a sudden you have a bunch of people that want to be cooks in the kitchen that say, well, can we do this? Can we do that? And now all of a sudden you end up taking what could have been a much easier transition and process in the building and planning aspect of it, and it drags it out way longer. So do you have any tips or thoughts on that?
That's a great point, Jason. So that's why I always recommend setting up early adopters who are not only going to be not only going to be proof points and test the concept, perhaps months or even years in advance, and bringing them totally up to speed, learning from that, of course, and incorporating that into the broader rollout. We're going to talk in a couple of minutes about what I consider my number one tip for my clients, and that is to set up a change advisory council or change advisory team to give direct feedback to those who are sponsoring the change and leading the change from a frontline perspective, and that's ongoing. So there are ways to get it underway, to learn, have lessons learned, set those early milestones, get the feedback before the broader rollout. And that way you can also tweak it, because of course the reason of doing a pilot or having early adopters as its own mini change process, because you'll have every aspect in that test period or that beta period as you are for the major rollout. But you'll learn all those things, and those key people will know. And if it's successful, that beta testing, if you want to call it that, then now you have an additional group of change champions who are going to be able to go back into their organizations, and you're going to equip them with the tools, the talking points, the instructions, so they can go back to their work units on the ground and say, you know what, this is really how it works. And people respect that and will get on board that way. And that way you don't have that Lamborghini paradox where you show up Monday morning and gosh, you've got to make some changes. Well, where did this come from? So if you tell people why you made the decision, this goes back to the journalistic question. If you tell them why you made the decision and what were the alternatives considered, this is a rare thing, but it's so powerful. In life, we do this all the time. I'm making an important decision for my life. Again, we talked about those positive changes that are so energizing. The new house, the new job, the new promotion, getting engaged, having the kids, all those huge decisions. Well, but we as adults, we go through and we parse out the pros and cons, and we decide, well, we don't want to live in that house, but we do want to live in this house. And we have a reason. We have reasons why we said no here and yes there. That's what we need in the workplace. We need to tell people they're adults, and they go home and they pay mortgages and they get their kids to school, and somehow they get to work on time. Who knows? What a strange thing. But they get there somehow on their own. If we tell them these were the choices we decided, and we decided the ServiceNow platform is best for us, not just because we're going to tell you how great it is, but because these were the options. And this is functionality, it's budget, it's timing, it's training. And so considering all these options, we chose ServiceNow. And people will respect that and get the buy-in. Otherwise, of course, like adults do, they'll say, well, did you consider the one that I used in my old job? Well, that's an endless cycle of what if, and that drains energy and creates change fatigue. Because we all know the classic, oh, they're changing things again.
Yep.
Oh, they just changed it last year. They're going to change it again. Well, that's because we're not telling them these are the options. This is why we decided to do it.
I like that you're talking about the change again, because it's something that I've heard it in our industry in particular, where folks will go from platform to platform, and sometimes they'll be on that platform way too long. One of the things that I've heard and seen is that ServiceNow is so far ahead of the competition, and so they're laying groundwork for things that, you know, I'll say, you know, the laggards, it could be 7, 8 years out. And you've got the early adopters right now that are jumping on some of these things, but, you know, like topics of regarding artificial intelligence being one that's a hot topic right now. You know, they've laid some serious groundwork there, and there's some amazing things that are going on. You know, natural language learning and things of that nature. It's interesting. I think that the conversation that we end up having inevitably is people are talking about growing into the platform rather than just having it be, hey, we're replacing what we have. It's, we're going to replace what we have. We're going to have all these incremental benefits, and then we're going to roadmap these other things that we can tie into the platform to create better communication and efficiency across the organization, so we can have a much better understanding as to where we stand as a company. And I think that it plays into the long-term comfort for those that are going to be part of this business, whether it's, you know, the entry level all the way up to management, because they can have the comfort in saying, hey, I'm with an organization that's thinking long-term, where we're going to be 5 years, 10 years from now. And it's not just about putting out the fire and ripping and replacing or meeting some budget requirement that we need. It's really an investment in the business.
That's well said, and exactly. And Jason, the point that you as a leader care, you actually care about your employees, you care about, of course, all the stakeholders, and you really have put thought into this and effort and energy, and you're going to bankroll it, as you say, as an investment. You've done all that great homework, and you have legitimate business reasons to make this change. But again, maybe because the change team and sponsors are so wrapped up in all of that research and meeting with the attorneys and meeting with the regulators, that it's to them, it's already real, it's happened, it's done. And they're so excited to come out and say, we've got the great new platform here. Well, again, you haven't explained why now, what were the alternatives? And so to your point, I think that idea of evolution. We have a platform like ServiceNow that we can evolve through, and so our changes are planful. I think of it as they're planful. The market has changed, the environment has changed this way or that way. But the platform helps us evolve, and it makes sense because we were at point A in the change management. We talk about the current state and the future state. And we have a planful approach to get there. And again, typically employees and all stakeholders will say, yeah, well, that's reasonable. And that's really all you need, is for them to say, that's a reasonable thing. Do I really want to make a change because I'm in the middle of transferring across the country for this new opportunity? Well, no, it could be better timing, but I get it. I understand why the decision was made.
I like your why now. It sticks out in my mind to give people that added understanding and really, you know, respect. Hey, it's not just being done. You know, there's strategy behind this.
There's strategy behind this, and I respect. After all, we tell our employees they're the best. We tell them that they are a rare, good thing, that we've chosen them out of maybe perhaps hundreds of people for this one position. We've put investment, as you mentioned, in training them and onboarding them, which is and the ongoing professional development. And we want them to be excited about the opportunity. Well, yes, and we should continue that. We should obviously continue that on through, instead of saying, oh, by the way, you were the best last year, but you know, this year maybe not. And you know, we're going to have a video call and do some strange things. And I might be flippant about it because it's very serious stuff. It's people's lives. It's people's lives that are affected. Yeah.
Well, we often talk about the fact that the employee satisfaction, this is giving companies an opportunity to improve that experience. How frustrating is it if you're locked out of your computer, or, your mouse fails and it's like, now what? And the house is on fire, whatever the case may be. It was, I remember being in class with you. It was Murphy's Law. Like, don't wait until the hour before class to print out whatever you got to bring in here. Do it the night before, because you never know. And I feel that in talking to folks who are up and running on this platform, just taking that one example of knowledge, I reach out to HR, maybe I misplaced my holiday calendar, something as simple as just knowing it's Sunday night, my significant other wants to plan a vacation, and I'm panicking going, are we off on this day? Are we not off on this day? What's my PTO level at, to be able to have that self-service experience has been a huge benefit for people. And it's also, giving the folks in HR more time to not have to worry about getting caught up in these tasks that are just time sucks, and potentially time sucks for them, without downplaying the importance for the employee side. All right, David, I know we wanted to try to keep these segments a little shorter just so we can have some more tidbits for people to jump onto. So I won't take any more of your time. Super appreciate you sharing your insight today. I learned some new stuff. Hopefully people that end up watching this hear some new stuff as well. And I'm looking forward to some future segments with you.
Excited for it, Jason. Look forward to it.
So if you like what you heard, I hope you tune into some future episodes that David and I will get into a little more detail and other questions. I just want to give another big shout out and thank you to David for his time, and look forward to having more content put out there in the future.